Folks, I've been doing these videos for a little while now, doing spoiler talks for video games that I've played, and I love doing them because I feel like a lot of video games have really touching stories or really interesting aspects of them that really need to be delved into that you can't really cover over the course of a regular review. And The Last of Us Part 2 is absolutely one of those games where you cannot talk about some of these elements in a regular review without spoiling them, and yet, I really don't want to do this video today. I really don't. And there's two reasons right off the bat that I really don't want to do. Actually, no, there's three reasons right off the bat that I don't want to do it. One is because, I'll go ahead and admit, our channel has gotten a lot of good press recently. Our channel has actually gotten some attention from a lot of people, and we've actually been gaining a lot of new subscribers. And I welcome all you new subscribers, and I'm so glad that you checked out our channel and you wanted to stick around. But this game is being hailed as the greatest video game achievement of all time. And I think it's just alright. I think it's okay. I think it's fine, and I know that I'm probably going to lose a lot of the good faith that we just recently built up, and I'm gonna lose a lot of those subscribers, but yeah, that's kind of how I feel. The second reason why I don't want to do this is because, as I just said, yeah, I do feel this game is kind of okay, and one of the reasons I feel it's okay is because I think it has a lot of problems in it. I think that there are a lot of negatives to this game that a lot of people just aren't covering. However, I have to go ahead and address this right now. I have to go ahead and bring this up. This game, it does feature Ellie as the protagonist, kind of, asterisk, and Ellie is a lesbian. And this game actually does feature a lot of different characters who are members of the LGBTQ community. It features female characters being depicted in ways that you don't normally picture them being depicted in video games. Like there's one female character in here who she actually is rather buff, and I know that some people have had a problem with that. And there's some people out there who have had a problem with the fact that Ellie is gay, and I know there's a lot of people out there who have a problem with the fact that there's a trans character in this game. I want to come in here right now and say, I'm not with those guys. I have problems with this game. I have many problems with this game, but I have to come in here and point that out because I've been on the internet for a while, and I know that whenever there's a group of people out there who are hating on something just because it features strong female characters or it features members of the LGBTQ community in there. Sorry, I tripped over my own words on that one. Just because it features members of the LGBTQ community in there are people out there who, if they hate the game just for that, and then you come in here and you say, yeah, I have problems with this game, they will then flock to you and say, yeah, see, this guy gets it. No, I don't get it. I am not with you. I am not associated with those people. And I had to just come in here and clarify that right now because, oh man, are those group of angry people out there in storms for this game. I know there are people out there who are going to say, no one is hating on this game just for that. Go on Metacritic. Go on Metacritic and look at some of the user scores in there. I went on Metacritic yesterday just to prep for this stream, just to prep for this recording, and there was a review on there that literally just said, stop putting lesbians in your game. And I was like, wow, not even trying to hide it. Not even trying to hide that you're just a bigot. Wow. I thought that most people who were prejudiced typically had like code words or something that they tried to hide this stuff behind, but nope, just right out there. So yeah, there's a lot of people who are mad just because Ellie is gay in this game. And before I come in here and go, well, here are my problems with the game, I just had to clarify, I'm not with those assholes. Screw them. So that's the second reason I didn't want to do this video, is I didn't want to attract that kind of an audience. But the third reason why I didn't want to do this is because, as I said, this is a spoiler talk video. This is not the review. We are going to have an official review of this game come out, but this is just the spoiler talk. There's no script, no nothing. It is just my thoughts on the game right after I finish playing the game. And apparently Naughty Dog does not want anyone doing a spoiler talk on this game. Apparently Naughty Dog is going around and just finding anybody on the internet who is mentioning stuff about certain parts of this game, and they're just taking them down. They are just giving them direct strikes. They are just coming in here and going, nope, we do not want anyone sharing anything about this game. So I am going to talk about the second half of this game, the part of the game that they didn't want anyone covering, which I understand why they didn't want anyone covering the second half of this game, because, yeah, I didn't know the game was going to do that. I was very surprised by what happened in the second half of this game. However, I will not be showing any footage of the second half of this game, which is going to make talking about very odd. So instead, just enjoy whatever I decide to put up here while I'm blathering away. So, okay, now that all of that is taken care of, let's get into the actual spoiler talk about this. I am going to start by talking about Ellie. And if you have not played this game yet, you might think to yourself, well, who else would you be talking about? Joel? Are you going to talk about Joel? Here's the first spoiler thing that I was unaware of. Maybe this was in some of the trailers. I tried avoiding a lot of the trailers, but I remember there was one trailer that made it really look like Ellie's girlfriend was going to get killed, and now Ellie was going to go on this cross-country rampage tour for revenge to get back at the people who killed her girlfriend. No, her girlfriend survives throughout this entire game. In fact, it never even really looks like her girlfriend is in trouble. I mean, there's a pregnancy scare at one point in which it looks like she might be getting sick, and they don't know what to do about that, so she's in trouble there. But as far as, like, actually being killed off, no, she is fine. She survives throughout the entire film. In fact, she probably gets out better than anyone in this entire game. The person that they kill off is Joel. They killed Joel off real early in here, and so Ellie goes out to get revenge for Joel, and yeah, I feel like this game wanted to turn to the audience and say, aren't you upset that Joel died? Can you believe that we killed off the protagonist from the last game? Can you believe that we would do something like that? Aren't you hurt by what we just did? And that is really kind of my biggest problem with the entire story of The Last of Us Part 2. It's that it feels like this game is constantly turning to you and going, wasn't that a terrible, horrible, sad thing? And I'm like, yeah, it was. I don't need you kind of like rubbing my face in it. This entire game isn't just serious, and this entire game isn't just dark. This game is overwhelmingly dark and depressing, and constantly wants to just stop and force you to look at how dark and depressing it is. And I'm not saying that you can't do that in games. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with doing that in games, but it doesn't feel like this game knows how to do that. It feels like this game saw other people do stuff like that, and then they said, oh, we can do that too. And before anybody comes in here and goes, oh, well, The Last of Us Part 1 did that as well. Yeah, you're under the impression that I like The Last of Us Part 1. I kind of feel about The Last of Us Part 1 the same way I feel about The Last of Us Part 2. Yeah, it was all right. Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, it's pretty generic. It's pretty bland. It's, you know, it's stuff that I've seen 1,000 times over, but, you know, it looked real pretty. And, you know, the characters are all right. I kind of enjoy the characters in here. That's kind of enjoyable. That's kind of how I felt about The Last of Us Part 1. And I feel that exact way about The Last of Us Part 2, except I think that they did it even worse in The Last of Us Part 2. Now, what do I mean when I say that The Last of Us Part 2 did it worse? Well, first off, what I mean is that, as I said, The Last of Us Part 1, it was kind of generic. I've seen this 1,000 times over. Yes, the whole plant mushroom zombies thing, that was new. That was unique. However, the whole, oh, there's a cure for the zombie thing, and oh, this is how dark the zombie apocalypse is. Like, yeah, I've kind of seen, this is just basic standard zombie stuff. We have seen this over and over and over again, many times before. And, you know, I'm not saying that you can't do something that you've done before. I'm not saying that everything has to be new and everything has to be unique and wholly its own thing. No, you can absolutely do stuff that you've seen 1,000 times over before. But it always felt like that game was really leaning into the stuff that I've seen before and acting like I haven't. And I just thought, yeah, I've watched movies, man. I'm going to completely steal a line from Jim Sterling because it's more mean-spirited than I like to ever be when I review something, but it was such a perfect line. He said, if you think The Last of Us Part 2 is a masterpiece, I can't wait till you read books or watch movies because, man, have you been missing out. I don't know if I would be that cruel about it, but that is kind of how I felt. Like, yeah, I've seen all this stuff before. And when we went to The Last of Us Part 2, it really kind of leaned away from the zombies and just leaned into the whole, yeah, in the apocalypse, man is the real enemy. It's like, yeah, I watched The Walking Dead. I watched The Road. I watched so many other movies and TV shows that are about this exact thing. It's kind of weird how they just really felt like they thought they were being new about this, and they really kind of weren't. I mean, The Last of Us Part 1 did that whole man is the real enemy thing, but this one leaned into it even more. And I swear to you, I am not kidding. I swear to you, I actually had the thought, well, at least they're not doing the whole, there's a weird doomsday cult that formed after the apocalypse thing. And then like almost immediately after I thought that, they found the whole she loves you or whatever it is sign. We found like the big murals that started hanging at the cult. And then the cult becomes the major player in the second part of this game. I'm like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. Oh my God, wow. Wow, we're actually doing this, huh? Okay. Fine. So yeah, when it comes to both The Last of Us Part 1 and The Last of Us Part 2, it feels like if it was a soup, it would be like basic chicken noodle soup, and they would serve it to you in a bowl, but while you're eating it, even if it was really well-made chicken noodle soup, they'd be staring at you the entire time, just going, this is the greatest thing you've ever had in your life, right? You've never tasted anything like this, right? It's like, well, I mean, I guess it's better than like, I don't know, Campbell's, but I mean, I've had better chicken noodle soup. I mean, it's not bad. You should be proud of yourself for making this pretty darn good chicken soup. Yeah, I mean, there's a noodle in there, and I saw you chopped up some carrots and celery. That's kind of nice. Yeah, that's good. It looks really pretty. It looks very pretty. This is a very pretty looking bowl of chicken noodle soup, but could you please stop staring at me and asking me why I think this is the best chicken noodle soup ever? I never even said that. But here's the other part of my argument about how the first Last of Us did all this stuff better. And again, I'd like to remind you, I didn't even think the first Last of Us was all that amazing. I gave it like an 8 out of 10. But with the first Last of Us, they had an arc for Joel. And it was this arc about how he had lost his daughter, and now he found this new girl who he had to protect, and she's around the age that his daughter would have been. And now they form like this semi-daughter-father relationship, like this parental relationship, and he cares about her again, which, again, you talk about showing me stuff that I've seen 1,000 times before. Character loses child, finds new character who kind of resembles their child, forms new parent-child relationship with them. Yeah, I've seen that 1,000 times before. It's fine. It is a perfectly fine story to tell. We have seen stories like that. We've seen stories like that done very well. We've seen stories like that done poorly. This one, it's done pretty good. They did it pretty good in this game. But you had that as his arc. He learned to care about someone again, but still, because Joel is a psychopath, which, let's not mince words here, everyone in The Last of Us games is kind of a psychopath or they're dead. Everybody in The Last of Us who isn't a complete nut job ends up dying at some point in these games. But yes, Joel still goes on the murder rampage at the end of the game, but he goes on a murder rampage for good now. It's so that he can save Ellie, although you could kind of argue about the morality of saving one person when it dooms all of mankind. It's a whole thing that I'm not even going to get into. But point is, he went on a journey in which he learned to care about someone. That was his arc. It was kind of a big, important thing. In this one, Ellie has an arc as well, but Ellie's arc is kind of the opposite direction. After she loses Joel, she now kind of goes a little bit nuts. She goes on a cross-country rampage to try and find the people responsible for this and make them pay, which, by the way, I had completely forgotten about this. It was pointed out by Pat from Pat Stares At over on the Castle Super Beast podcast, so I'm just going to go ahead and give them full credit for this. But in the original Last of Us, apparently Tess was supposed to be like the main antagonist of it, and she was going to chase Joel across the country because he screwed her out of a deal, but they decided not to do that because they said that they couldn't really picture this character going on a cross-country trip all for revenge. And now I'm looking over at Ellie, who is going on a cross-country trip for revenge throughout the course of this entire game, which, granted, she had a very big bad thing happen. It's bigger and worse than what they said they were going to have happen in tests, but still, it's one of those things that you can't help but think about. You can't help but think about, like, isn't this the exact thing that you said you didn't want to do in the first game? Okay, that's kind of odd. All right, sure. But throughout this journey, she keeps getting worse and worse, and you see her do terrible, horrible things, and you, the player, are supposed to feel like terrible, horrible things are happening. You, the player, are supposed to sit there and go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that we've had this happen. And there are several moments, there are story scripted moments where Ellie is supposed to sit there and think, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I become? I can't believe what a monster I am. And the game is trying to rub that in your face constantly, all throughout. Like, anytime that you kill someone and another person runs up and goes, no, they got Otis. No, they shot Charlotte. No, it's supposed to make you feel like you just ended a life. You just did that. I can't believe that you just did that. How horrible that is. And all I could think was, I'm not picturing that I just ended a person's life. I'm picturing a boardroom of people sitting around going, what name would draw out the most sympathy from the audience? I mean, it's supposed to make you, the audience, think about the fact that, oh my goodness, I just killed someone. I can't believe that the player I'm playing as has murdered someone. Oh my goodness, how dark is this for Ellie? What has become of Ellie? And no, all I could picture was, that is just a blank generic NPC number 50. I've killed 49 other ones. I'm gonna have to kill 49 more before I'm even done with this level. And you're just gonna keep throwing them at me. And there's a bunch of writers in a boardroom just sitting around going, okay, we've used Otis, we've used Charlotte, we've used Joel. No, wait, we can't use Joel. Can't use Joel at all. That'd be weird. That would be weird. We can't use that one. Rick, we'll use Rick. No one's touched Rick yet. Yes, we'll have Rick be used. Yeah, I just never bought into that at all. And it just felt like the game was trying too hard. And again, it's another one of those things where it feels like the game is trying to turn to you and go, no one has ever done this before. No one has ever made you feel this way about NPCs. And I'm like, there have been countless other video games where the random enemies would call out other characters' names when you end up taking them out. That's been done so many times. This is nothing new. The only thing that this game is doing differently is that it's actually trying to make you feel sad about it. But if they're going to make you feel sad about, maybe Ellie should feel sad about it. And that brings me to where Ellie's arc in this game completely falls apart for me. That brings me to the moment in which I went, you gotta be freaking kidding me. I don't know why I'm keeping myself from cursing in this video. I'm probably showing a lot of terrible, horrifying stuff on the screen right now, but for all the people just listening to this podcast style, yes, you gotta be freaking kidding me. There comes that moment in which she goes up to that person and they're playing a video game, and she goes up behind them and she's interrogating them, and then she ends up stabbing them in the throat. And then Ellie has this moment where she looks at her knife like, oh, okay, like she didn't mean to do it, and she's having to like, she's got like heavy breathing, and she kind of has to like brace herself to accept like, oh man, I just killed someone. And I was like, why are you impacted by that? I've literally had to kill about 200 other characters on my way just to get to this one story-related death. And I know that this is a stealth game, so in theory, if you play it perfectly, you would probably only have to take out like, I don't know, 4 or 5 other story-related characters up until that point. So if you played it absolutely frame perfect up until that point, you could probably have that moment make sense, but no one is doing that. No one is playing through this game where they don't end up taking out everyone, because it is next to freaking impossible to actually do that. The vast majority of the people who are going to play this game are going to end up taking out so many other characters on their way to get to this one story-related one that this isn't going to mean anything. And maybe you should have realized that when you were actually designing this moment. Like, maybe make it that if they had somehow managed to not kill anyone on their way to this character, which, again, you can't do it. You just can't do it. The game is not designed to allow you to do that. But if you can somehow do it, then yes, then Ellie has like that moment where she has to stop and go, oh my goodness, what did I just do? Like, give her like a morality meter. Something that a lot of other games do. A morality mirror. You don't even have to have it be like a physical meter that you can look at. Like, have it be something invisible that's running in the background. Because the way that I play this, where I had to take out everyone, because if I didn't take out everyone, then I was just going to die. There was no way for me to get through all this stuff. When I got to that moment, I just looked at it and again just said, you have done this exact thing to so many other people. Why is it having an impact on you now at this moment? This doesn't make sense. Like, she stabbed her in the throat. That's literally the #1 way that Ellie kills people in this game, whenever she stealth attacks them. It meant nothing to me that this just happened. I was like, story, why are you trying to make me feel bad about that moment when I've done it to over 100 other characters up until this moment? And then after that, there is a moment in which she has to interrogate someone, and a button popped up on the screen. Ellie was so enraged by this person. She was surrounded by red light, and she was just breathing heavily, and she just couldn't take it. And then the button popped up. It just had the square button come up there to attack this person. And I just looked at it for like 5 minutes, like, don't give me the option to do this. Don't make this a thing that I, the player, have to initiate. Unless there is another way around this. Unless there is some way to not do this. And I just sat there for like 5 minutes, just staring at that moment. It was like, no, I refuse to. Because I know what the game is doing. I know what the game is doing. The game is trying to turn to you, the player, and go, aren't you terrible for doing this? Aren't you terrible for doing this? Like I talked about on Twitter, the whole thing about how this game is giving the NPCs, the random enemies, like just random names that they all cry out when they run up to their friends and see that they've been killed. And I said, like, yeah, I know this game is trying to turn to you, the player, and say that, oh yeah, aren't you terrible for doing this? And I had people on Twitter say, no, it's trying to say that Ellie is terrible for doing this. If that's the case, why during this moment? Why during this exact moment where Ellie is about to just beat this person to death, why have it be that I, the player, have to hit this button? Just have it be a cutscene. Have it be a cutscene that happens. If you have the actual thing come up there, then they're saying that you, the player, had to do this. You, the player, hit that button. And there's many moments like that throughout this game. That's just the big one that got to me, but there's a moment later on involving a dog that I will return to that they also did that exact same thing, and they did it even worse in that moment. But Ellie, you have to hit this button over and over again to watch Ellie just beat this person to death. And then after that, it cuts to Ellie back at the movie theater where they're all hanging out, their head base, and you see her hands are just shaking. She just can't believe what she just did. She can't believe that she just had to kill this person. She had to make them talk. And again, all I could think was, I have killed like 200 people. No one take that line out of context, but I have killed like 200 people leading up to this moment. Yes, I get that this one was a bit more savage because you were trying to interrogate them rather than just mindlessly killing them. But oh my God, if you are not affected at all by the 200 some odd murders that you performed leading up to that character, this one is not going to have that impact on Ellie. This is the game turning to the player saying, look at what has happened to Ellie. Look at the descent that she has gone through. Look at what she has become. And I'm like, screw what she's become. She was like this from the very beginning of the game because that's how you designed the game to be played. It just felt so pretentious to me. It felt like this game just smelling its own farts. It felt like this game just turning to you and saying, look at what an amazing character arc we gave Ellie, showing how far down she's fallen. I'm like, you do know that the actual video game parts of your video game are completely conflicting with the story you've written here, right? Like, were the game developers and the story writers, were they not allowed to talk? Were the people who were writing the story, did they not know how the game would actually be played? Did they not know that was going to happen? It drove me insane at that moment. And again, I had to keep coming back around to this. This is a game where they keep turning to you, and it's not that this game is dark and depressing. It's not that it's dark and depressing, because there's a lot of games out there that are dark and depressing. Not all games have to be fun. No, not at all. Some games can absolutely just be soul crushing. They can be games that just rip you apart on the inside, and that's absolutely fine. Because I do believe that video games are a work of art, and I've always said that the entire point of art is to make you feel something. It doesn't always have to be a good thing. It can be just gut-wrenching pain is what it's meant to make you feel, and that's what this game is going for. But this game, it always has to add another thing. This game always has to throw in there an extra thing, and I feel like 9 out of 10 times whenever it had to throw in there that extra thing, that extra kick in the nuts, it was like that didn't actually help your game. It actually just made me look at you and go, oh, come on. Like the moment in which Ellie gets to the aquarium, which is a beautiful idea for a giant set piece. Just a great moment just a great place for a showdown in an aquarium. Never seen anyone do that. That was actually really smart of them. But it gets to that moment in which Ellie faces off with these two people, and she ends up killing them, and then she discovers that the woman that she just killed was pregnant, and she just collapses. She cannot believe, oh my gosh, I didn't just kill this person, I also killed their child. What a monster I am. I can't believe that I just did that. And again, it's one of those things where I look at it, it's like, wow, video game, you really want to go that one extra step. You want to go that one extra step, and it almost gets to the point where it's ridiculous. And that's what bugs me about how this game is trying to be dark and serious, is that it doesn't just try to be dark and serious, it tries to be so dark and serious that it feels ridiculous. It feels like a parody of someone trying to be dark and serious. And again, I know there are people who are going to say, oh, well, the first Last of Us was really dark and serious and they did terrible stuff like this. Not quite to this point. I feel like this game went a little bit even further with it. However, again, just to remind everyone, I wasn't even the biggest fan of the first Last of Us. I gave it an 8 out of 10, which is a good score. It is a good score. It is a nice, good, great score even. It's a great score. But I did have problems, and some of my problems did stem from the fact that this game was just like, let's just pound you over the head with it. Let's just pound you over the head with the drama of this game. That was one of my problems with that game, and it's a problem in this game. But in that game, there would at least be those moments to break it up. There would at least be a couple of moments in there to help break up the overwhelming drama and the overwhelming dark, depressing tones. Like that moment between Ellie and Joel and the giraffe. Holy crap, that is an amazing moment. That is a great moment. Even that moment where you find those people and then you're walking around in that abandoned town and you just get like those nice little moments of talking to each other. That's a wonderful little moment in there, and it helps to break all that stuff up. This game, the only times in which they are breaking up the dark and depressing tones is when they're having flashbacks between Ellie and Joel. However, even though those are great moments, that whole sequence of Ellie and Joel at the museum, that is a beautiful scene. That is a beautiful scene. But unlike with the scenes from the first game, where you're thinking about stuff like, Ellie with Joel in the draft, where you're just like, oh, I can actually forget about all the terrible stuff for a moment and just focus on this right now. That's what I need right now. I just need to focus on this. All the flashback scenes, they're happening after Joel died. So when you're watching these really touching moments between Ellie and Joel, you're not thinking about, oh, that's a nice moment. Oh, that's such a wonderful, oh, that's so nice. You're thinking about, oh yeah, that's a nice moment, and this man is dead. And that's why we're going out to murder all these people. Because they took away the man providing this nice moment for Ellie. They're taking away that wonderful, oh my God, just seeing how nice their relationship was, it makes me even sadder about the fact that he's dead now. Yeah, all the nice moments in this game are here to make the sad moments even worse. Not to give you a break from them, but to enhance them. And because of stuff like that, that is why to me, the dark, depressing tone of this game does not work. It's because you need occasional breaks, especially when your game is like 30 hours long. According to howlongtobeat.com, this game takes between 20 and 24 hours, depending on how much you want to explore. In fact, even at the moment that I'm recording this, says that the completionist run, the run to get everything, is 29 hours. I put 33 hours into this thing. And I did not complete it. I did not get everything in there. I'm just one of those guys who when you tell me there are collectibles in a game, I am going to search through everything to find every collectible. So yes, I put 33 hours in this game, but let's look at what most people played. Let's say that the average amount of playtime for this is like 20 to 24 hours, 22 hours on average. Yeah, if you're going to have something that lasts 22 hours straight, and it's just going to be this same one dark tone all throughout, nothing to ever break that up, it's just going to make you numb. That's the other reason why I did not care about what was happening with Ellie. Not because the stuff that the story was trying to make me feel sad about completely contradicted the gameplay, because again, it's not even like after Ellie has that moment where she has to torture that person in order to get them to talk, that then she goes, what have I become? I can't keep doing this. I need to stop doing this. No, you immediately go to the next level where you're murdering people all over again. It had no impact on her. But as I said, when you just have that one tone with nothing to break it up, and you're just hammering that tone in harder and harder for 20 to 24 hours, yeah, by the end of this thing, I was like, I don't even care what happens. I really don't. Like, you just dunk me in that much of a sea of gray, and yeah, I stopped looking for colors. When you just put me into like that much absolute just despair for that long, I no longer feel it. I no longer actually like care what happens to these characters anymore. And that is another huge problem with this game, just trying so hard to be that dark and serious. I have to keep hammering this home. It's not that you can't be dark and serious. It's not that literally anything that happens in this game can't happen in a video game. You can absolutely do everything that you did in this game. You just have to know how to balance it. You have to know how to play it out. You have to know how to have that actually work hand in hand with the actual gameplay. And I don't believe that this game did any of that correctly. Until we got to the second half of this game. I was convinced I was almost done, because like I said, I looked up online and said it takes about 20 to 24 hours to complete this thing, and I was at like 18 hours, and I was like, okay, well, I know I've been taking a little extra time, so we probably got like, what, like 3-4 more hours in this. We're in the home stretch right now. And then Abby shows up. Abby is the person who killed Joel, and then she pops up, and it's the big standoff between Ellie and Abby, and then we just cut to Abby's story. And then we literally have half the game left to go through, and it's all of Abby's stuff. We're just exploring what happens with Abby. And we have flashbacks to Abby's childhood, and then we see what Abby has been doing the entire time that Ellie was running around in Seattle. And this is how you actually make this game work. This is what this game needed to do. Like I said, when they had the random NPCs right up there going, oh no, they got Eric. Oh God, no, not Eric, no. Yeah, I just kept looking at that like, that doesn't mean, no, I don't care. I don't care at all. Why are you trying to make me care about this game? But then you play as Abby, and there comes that moment where she's going around inside of their base, and you see just all these body bags, and like, yeah, we pulled these out, and we think it was the Scars, but the Scars is the weird cult group in there, and maybe it was the Scars, maybe it was the Scars, but I couldn't help but look at that and go, oh my God, was that Ellie? Did you literally just show me the body bag of all the characters I murdered all throughout this game? Because if you want to talk about a way to make me actually feel like, holy crap, I had to do some terrible stuff with this character, actually show me the consequences of that. A character just running up and going, no, random character, no, that's not the consequences. But then you give me a story about someone on that side, and then you show me them having to like look at like just the mountain of horrible things that I did. That was the moment in which I went, oh crap, now I actually feel an impact from this. Like I said, it might actually have been the Scars. I might actually just be making stuff up in my head. But to me, it was like, no, I think those are all the characters that I just killed as Ellie. And that's actually, like, you actually gave me the impact you were going for there, video game. Good for you. Applause. And it didn't stop there. It didn't stop there with how I think Abby actually kind of saved this game. Because as I said, Ellie had an arc. And her arc was descending into darkness. And I don't think any of that worked because the dark things that you're doing, you're literally doing them from the very start of the game. It doesn't mean anything. Abby's story is she is already working for this horrible, evil militia group. And it is her slowly learning, yeah, they're a horrible, evil group. And I need to leave them. Like, that was the one thing about the opening of this, where they were coming in there and trying to make you feel sad about all the things that Ellie had done, which, again, this game does always go that one extra step. It tries to just rub in your face the terrible things that you've done. And there came that moment in which I was walking through the kennel at their compound, and you see all the dogs in there, and it was the game basically turning to you going, these are all the dogs that you killed. You as Ellie murdered all of these dogs. I was like, they're dogs. You don't have to make me feel worse about killing them. They're man's best friend. I already feel like an asshole for having to do that. Also, you video game made me do that. You video game never gave me the choice to go, if you scratch the dog behind the ear at this point, it will actually like you and become your friend. No! The game turns to you and goes, all right, kill the dog or you die and the game is over with right now. Those are your only options. So again, I'm not really going to feel like, oh my goodness, I'm a monster for doing this. I'm going to look at you, the game developers, and go, wow, you guys are assholes for trying to make me feel bad about this. But they come in there and you see all the dogs, and then you actually have to play fetch with one of the dogs. They bring a ball up to you and you play fetch with them there. And even if you don't play fetch with the dog there, later on in the game, there's a dog that Ellie actually kills in a cutscene. Like, the dog jumps on you and it's biting at you. Like, many of the other dogs in here, I know that some people are going to say, well, again, if you play this perfectly, if you play this absolutely perfectly, you can avoid all those dogs. So you didn't actually have to kill them. It's like, first off, nobody's playing the game that perfectly. Like, only maybe the top 3% of players in the world are gonna be able to avoid killing anyone in this game. But there is one dog that it is a cutscene. The dog jumps at you, and then like the mash the square button pops up, and you gotta mash that square button, or it's game over. You have to mash the square button so that Ellie can then kill this dog. And if you don't mash that square button, then that's it. Then you lose, game over. So you gotta do it, you have to do it. That dog actually has a name and is actually close friends with some of the characters that you get to know when you're playing as Abby. It is Abby's close friend. Abby loves this dog so much. And during Abby's part of the story, you can play fetch with that dog as well. And you can't even skip that fetch. The game makes you play fetch with the dog at that point. And again, I know someone is going to come in here and go, well, you see, that was a lighthearted moment. Getting to play fetch with the dog, that was a lighthearted moment. Again, this is coming after you played through Ellie's campaign, where you know that Ellie is going to end up murdering this dog. So if these two stories were going hand in hand, if you were jumping back and forth between both parts of this story, then yes, that would be a light moment. That would be a moment to help break this up. Instead, you're playing with this dog and getting to know this dog after you know for a fact Ellie is going to murder that dog. So it's just like the flashbacks between Ellie and Joel, where you're looking at that and you're just like, oh, I don't feel happy about this. I just feel more sad about Joel. I just feel more sad about what happened earlier in the game. Same thing with playing fetch with a dog. It is not here to break up the sadness. It is here because they're like, wow, we don't really know how to shove sadness into this moment. Oh, let's have you have a good moment with the dog so you'll then be reminded that you killed that dog earlier in that scene that was completely unavoidable. Well, I really went off on the whole dog thing there. I'm sorry, I love dogs. I kind of feel bad when video games force me to do stupid stuff like this. But anyway, let's get back to talking about Abby. So, you play through this entire moment as Abby, you get to see everything that she's been doing, and as I said, when this storyline begins, she's working for the Wolves, this weird militia group, and you know for a fact that they're bad guys. You know that they are terrible, terrible people, and they're trying to make you feel kind of bad for all the things that you've done to them. And yeah, when you actually see like all the body bags, I did have that impact of, holy crap, I actually did wow. Okay, now I'm kind of getting an impact from this. But then I had to remind myself, yeah, I've also been reading all the notes about what the Wolves have been doing. I know they're a bunch of assholes. I know they're a terrible group as well. And then they stop and actually show you like their own personal torture cells. So I know that they're terrible people as well. So I'm not going to feel bad for Abby. I'm kind of like with Ellie, where I don't feel bad if she's upset, because she's going to immediately go back to being a terrible person. And she was always a terrible person at the start of this game. This game starts off, Abby is a terrible person. I'm not really going to feel bad about that. But then Abby meets these kids. And then through her interactions with these kids, she starts to realize maybe the wolves are bad. And maybe I am just continuing to do the terrible things that the wolves have done. Maybe I need to change all that. And then she actually starts to become a better person. And she starts to actually see the error of her ways and try to correct them. And she goes on a journey and she has a character arc where she becomes a better person by getting attached to these kids. And that entire sequence there where you're having to escape the island, man, it's not just that Abby is a better character in here than Ellie. And it's not just that I like her storyline better than I liked Ellie's. It's also, Ellie's storyline is kind of just bland. It's kind of you just going through this dark, dingy, gray section of Seattle. Whereas with Abby, you gotta go through this abandoned hotel, and that thing is horrifyingly creepy, and I love that entire moment. You gotta cross across this giant bridge, and Abby has a fear of heights, and man, they play that up incredibly well. Then you gotta escape this island that is on fire. That entire sequence there is gorgeous. So every single thing that they did with Abby, I was like, this is the actual game that I kind of want to play. This is the actual game that I kind of want to be playing through. So yeah, I really enjoyed what they did with Abby, and that to me was what this game kind of needed to be, and it did occur to me, okay, I know exactly what you're doing. Abby starts off low, she is a bad person, but then her storyline goes up. And she improves, and she tries to make up for the terrible things that she's done, and she becomes a better person. Whereas Ellie is supposed to start as a good person and then drop down, but as I said, I don't think that worked because Ellie is a murder machine who doesn't care about anyone from the very beginning of this game. So yeah, it wasn't really the conflicting storylines that you thought it was, but I get that's what they were going for. One character starts low, goes up, one character starts up, goes low. That's what they wanted to do. And honestly, I think that's a genius idea. Again, don't really think that it worked all that well because I don't really think that they really showed that as well as they wanted to over in Ellie's campaign, but again, the idea behind it I think was actually genius, and all after that moment where Abby's storyline gets to where Ellie's storyline ended, and then you have Abby facing off with Ellie, and you have a boss fight against Ellie, and Ellie is doing all the things that you basically taught Ellie to do. Like, she's setting traps, she's using all the explosive arrows that you found. It's great. It is a genius boss fight, where essentially you created the boss yourself. And the boss of the entire game, the big final boss, is the protagonist you thought you were going to play as, but they have descended so far into madness, now they're the final boss. That's genius. That is 100% genius. I applaud that so much. I think that is a genius way for this game to go out. But it doesn't go out like that. Oh, there is an epilogue. And that epilogue is second only to Red Dead Redemption 2's epilogue, in epilogues that did not know when to go out. That was another problem I had with this entire game. This game always keeps going. It always keeps going longer than it should. And I don't just mean the story. I mean, like, when you're going up against a group of enemies, you'll be going up against a group of enemies. It'll be this really tense moment, and you gotta take them all out, and it takes you a little while to sneak up behind them, or to clear them all out in one way or another. And then you're finally done, and you can breathe a heavy sigh of relief, and oh, thank goodness, that's finally resolved. And then a truck just pulls up with a whole bunch of other ones, or now all of a sudden like 5 more appear, and you don't even know where they came from, but they're just there. Then you clear all of them out, and now a whole bunch of other ones just appear. It just always keeps going. This is a game that just keeps going, and it drove me insane. And the epilogue is the icing on that keep going cake. Remember how good the epilogue was in the first Last of Us? As I said, I had a lot of problems with The Last of Us, but I think the best thing about that entire game is the epilogue. I think the best thing about that entire game is the epilogue because you have Joel, he went in there, he rescued Ellie because, yes, they were going to have to kill her, but by killing her, they would find a cure for this plant zombie virus going around the entire plant. So it's really hard to really capture the realism and seriousness of this game when I have to also use the phrase plant zombie virus. But he went in there and he killed all these doctors so he could rescue Ellie. And then you see him out there, who knows how much longer, probably months later, and he's just walking through the woods, and he's now sounding like a completely different person. He sounds like he actually cares about Ellie. He actually enjoys that the two of them are together, and they're out there, they're walking around, and then she has to stop him and go, listen, just tell me, was there actually a cure? Could they actually have found a way to get a cure for me? You have to promise me that there was actually a way, that what you're telling me is true. You have to promise me that there was no way. And then he looks at her and goes, I promise there was no way to get a cure. And then there's like this little moment of silence. She just stares at Joel. He goes, okay. And that's how the game ends, and I thought that was genius. This way of like, oh yeah, it's a happy ending because Joel and Ellie, they're together, and they can actually, they can have that father-daughter relationship that Joel has been missing so much. And it's like, no, the game stops at the end and go, yeah, life ain't like that. Life is not like that. It doesn't always all work out, and Joel did some horrible things, and those horrible things, it's always going to create this unease between them. And I love that just creates this question mark, this question about what comes next. I love that question was just left there in the air, and then the sequel was made and that question mark gets answered, and I think, oh, well, that kind of takes away the mystery of the end of it, and like the haziness and the grayness that I kind of liked about how it went out. Yeah, it's kind of upsetting, but anywho, as I said, that's how the epilogue was for the first game, and I thought that was brilliant. This one, it is years later. Ellie has now retired with her girlfriend. They're living in a farmhouse. They're raising sheep. They've got wheat. They have a baby there. They're doing just fine. They've gone around this. But then Ellie has this flashback, and you can tell that she is still being tortured by Joel's death. She still keeps seeing Joel's death all over. She has PTSD from the entire thing. And then one day, Tommy comes around, and he goes, yeah, I think I found them. They're in California. And he leaves this map there of where he thought they found him, and as Tommy is leaving, Ellie's like, yeah, no, we can't, no, I'm done, I'm not doing that anymore, I am done, I can't do this anymore. But as Tommy is leaving, Ellie, she's just standing there, and then you see her look down at the map, and I went, that's how this is going to end. That is going to be another great ending, because it's going to leave us with that question of, was Ellie able to move past this? Was Ellie finally able to let go of the terrible things that she had to do, of like the terrible things that happened to her? Is she going to actually finally be able to move on with her life and let the cycle of violence in? That's the phrase that this game loved to use when they were in development. They were talking about the cycle of violence. Is she going to finally let the cycle of violence end? I thought, you know what, that's a good way to go out. It doesn't go out like that. It doesn't. It decides to keep freaking going. And then you see her go down to California, and now she's going around, and you gotta kill off more clickers. And I remember when it got to that moment in California in which first off, it switches over to Abby. I was like, okay, you don't need to show us Abby right now. You really don't need to show us that. And then Abby found some collectibles for crafting. And I thought, why are you giving me crafting materials right now? Crafting materials are for when there's more gameplay and there's more enemies to face. Why are there more enemies to face? We're done. We had the big final confrontation with Ellie. That's how you go out. Don't have me kill generic bad guy number 9 all over again. Don't keep doing this. But they kept doing it, and it kept going, because after they were done with that, after we got done getting introduced to what's going on with Abby, and it gets to that moment where she runs into the Rattlers, which is the bad guy group down in California, which, you wanna know how long this epilogue is? They introduce a new bad guy group during the epilogue. Please don't. No, don't introduce a new bad guy group when there is not nearly enough time for me to actually get invested at all with new bad guy groups. But then you cut over to Ellie, and Ellie is now chasing them all down, and Ellie now has to go and murder 100 other people, which the game should make you think that she's going to feel bad about, but she doesn't feel bad about, because screw it, even though they're trying to make these generic bad guy NPCs feel like actual characters, we all know they're not. The game never presents them to you like they are. They never have the impact on anyone like they are. So, Ellie kills off a whole bunch of them. Then she goes and she finds that Abby is, again, even if it's really dark and depressing, great set piece. Great set piece of when she walks out there onto the beach and you just see all these prisoners, including Abby, just chained up on these posts. And she goes up to them, frees Abby, and then Abby frees Lev and takes Lev, puts him in a boat, And Lev was talking earlier about how he wants to actually leave America and go west and just see what's across the ocean. And they load up in a boat and about to go off west. I was like, oh, okay, that's actually, you know, that's not bad. That's not a bad way to go out. I kind of like that. I kind of like that you're about to go off like that. But then Ellie comes up and Ellie says, no, I can't let you go out like that. I still have to kill you. And when Abby refuses, Ellie takes out her knife and puts it to this little kid's throat and says that if you don't fight me to the death, I will kill this little kid that you care about so much. Okay. I need a moment here, guys. I'm not even going to cut this out. Because this did me in. I just audibly went, fuck you at that moment. And I know I tried not to curse earlier, but I just had to get that out. Because this is the character I'm playing as, and I get that this entire franchise is about the dark, horrible things that these people are forced to do over and over again. I get that. I do. But this game keeps trying to hammer in that Ellie should maybe learn a lesson at some point in here. And I do not feel like she ever does, because even after she gets away from this, even after she moves in with her girlfriend and her baby, and she's got a farm and everything seems fine, she is still willing to murder a child. Even after she felt so bad about killing the pregnant woman. I need to bring that back up again. She felt so bad about killing the pregnant woman. A couple of years later, she is down there in California and she's like, nah, I'm about to kill this child right here unless you fight me to the death. After everything I've been through, I still have to make you do this. I have to make you fight me to the death. And there came that moment. I actually said this on Twitter. I was complaining about how long this game was going on, and I actually said on Twitter, this game is going on so long, I will never see the end of it. There will be a button that says "in the game," and I will not be able to press it. I will collapse before I'm able to press it. I said something along those lines on Twitter. It got to this moment, and then Abby came running up, and she grabbed Ellie, and then the mash square button popped up that I needed to hit in order to get Abby off of me, and I didn't press it. I died twice in that final battle simply because the mash this button to fight Abby button came up, and I just looked at it and went, no, I refuse. And I mentioned this on Twitter, and someone on Twitter said to me, oh, so what, you thought this was like a Telltale game where you got different options? Hey, I will admit that earlier, when there was that moment where you had to torture the person and I refused to hit the button, I did think to myself, you wouldn't give me the option to hit that button if there was something that could happen by me not hitting the button. Like, that's just bad game design. Like, why would you do that? No, turns out they just were like, no, we have to make you murder them. But no, in this moment, I knew I had to hit that button to fight off Abby. But screw it. I actually had to force myself to finish this game when I was at the ending because I was literally looking at the mash this button to beat the game button, and I went, I don't want to press it because I know what will happen if I press it. Screw you, video game. I don't want to do it because Ellie is so unlikable. Ellie is so horrible in this game, and I get it. I get that she is supposed to be bad. I get, like I said earlier, when you were playing as Abby, I was like, wow, the villain of the game was the protagonist at the beginning? That's genius. But they didn't want to go out like that. They did not want to go out like that. So instead, they had us play as this horrible, horrible person again. And I'm sorry, I can't hide. Ellie is a horrible person. I saw a post going around Twitter, not to keep referencing Twitter, but I saw a post going around Twitter where somebody took Ellie and they said, name me a video game character who has suffered more than this character. I'll wait. And I went, she hasn't even suffered more than most of the characters in this game. Abby suffered more. Lev suffered more. That poor kid, jeez. So even if you want to make the argument that, well, she was driven to this by the horrible things that happened to her, so many other characters had even worse things happen to them, and they didn't become monsters. Hell, Abby was a monster and then became a good person at the end of all this. So no, the whole she's a bad person because of the horrible things that have happened to her thing, it has zero impact on me. It really does. I was literally looking at this final fight between Abby and Ellie, and I just kept looking at it going, yeah, let Abby win. I don't care. I don't care if I never get that trophy. I don't care if I never get that trophy at the end. Screw it. I refuse to do this. Because I dislike Ellie that much right now. You literally have this character about to kill an innocent child, and I'm supposed to now play as them. I don't want to do it. And I know some people are going to go, well, you said that the point of art is to make you feel a feeling, and this was making you feel disgust. This was making you feel anger. Yes, it was. And you know something? The Last of Us Part 2, it is art. It is absolutely art, but that's because, again, by my definition, anything that makes you feel emotions is art. So yes, I'm not going to argue that The Last of Us Part 2 is not art in its way, but it kind of reminds me of a problem that I had with the first game. Again, going back to the very first game and some of the problems I had with that game opens up with Joel's daughter dying. And it's a very sad moment. And the game is turned to you at the very beginning of this game going, isn't that a very sad moment? Didn't we make you feel sad right now? And I just kept looking at it going, you just killed an innocent child in front of me. Of course it's sad. I'm not a robot, but that's lazy. That is lazy. Just coming in here. It's kind of like in horror movies when they kill the dog. That's a trope in horror movies where they will just kill off the dog to make you, the audience, know, oh, this is a bad, terrible thing. This is a bad, scary moment. Oh, that's how bad the enemy is. They just killed a dog. It's a very, very cheap thing to do. It's kind of like what happened in The Last of Us Part 1. They just start the thing off by killing the daughter. And I looked at it and went, yeah, don't get me wrong. I understand that's the point of the game. I understand the point of the game is the fact that Joel lost his daughter and now he has to take care of this little girl. I get it. I absolutely get it. But don't then turn to me like, oh, wasn't this a really touching moment? It's a cheap moment. It's a very cheap moment. Anyone is going to feel sad when you kill a little girl. We're not sociopaths. We're not Ellie. But speaking of that, yeah, at the end, oh, it made you so mad, Ellie. Yes, because Ellie is terrible. Because Ellie is doing terrible, terrible things at the end of this. It's easy. You have our character who I am controlling say they're going to murder an innocent child, and then you go, oh yes, don't you feel really mad about what Ellie's doing? No shit, I feel mad about it. But eventually I did decide to finish the game. I did decide, yeah, all right, the cycle of violence is going to continue until I actually beat the game. So I did beat it. And I will say that it does have a little bit of an upswing there at the end. It does have a little bit of an upswing. I talk about how I really like the kind of mysterious, oh, what happens next, you don't know, kind of a way that the first one went out. I do like that Abby and Lev, they get on this boat and we don't know what happened because both of them are next to death. Both of them are knocking on death's door, but they get on this boat and they're just gonna try and get away. And I looked at that and just went, that is actually a great what happens next kind of thing. It kind of reminds me of Children of Men, talking about really good stories set in post-apocalyptic worlds. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the ending of Children of Men. Spoiler for Children of Men. And I do like that during the final fight, Ellie has 2 of her fingers bitten off. And throughout this entire game, the way that Ellie is able to reconnect with Joel is she plays the guitar. And you can tell that's kind of her way of going, yeah, Joel taught me how to play guitar. So this is kind of my way of reconnecting. And then there at the end, she goes home. Her girlfriend, or at this point, they're probably wives at this point. I mean, they've been living together. They have a child. They're probably wives. But her wife is gone. And she gets back home. By the way, is it obvious that I forgot her name? And I should have written it down. I am horrible with names. I am absolutely horrible with names. I will admit that. I am so sorry, everyone. But that's why I keep calling her Ellie's girlfriend. I'm like, I know it began with a D. Dina? Was it Dina? I think it was Dina. But yeah, so she has left. The house is completely empty right now. Ellie lost everything. She built up a very nice life, but she could not hold on to that life because she couldn't let the anger go. She had to hold on to that anger, and so because of that, she lost everything. So it's like, all right, good. Show the consequences of her action. But then she goes upstairs, she finds her guitar, she tries to play the guitar, but she's now missing 2 fingers, so she can't play the guitar anymore. And because they make you, the audience, actually play the guitar with a little touchpad on the PlayStation, it made you actually feel the pain of, oh, now when I hit this button, it actually sounds bad. And before, it was actually kind of impressive that I hit this button and I played the guitar. That is like the exact opposite of those press square to murder someone moments throughout this game. Press square to kill the dog moments. As I said, I kind of hated those moments because they were like, yeah, you're in Ellie's shoes. You're doing this. And it's like, yeah, but I don't have any other choice in this matter. But at this moment, when you actually had to play the guitar and you saw that you could no longer play it well and didn't sound good anymore, yeah, that was that moment. It was like, oh wow, I kind of do feel like I'm right there in her shoes at this moment. That's actually great because I was doing this cool little thing on the PlayStation before, and now I can't do it because we went through that whole thing in California right now. And then at the end, she just walks away, and I love that final shot of her walking away. And I like that you get that one last flashback, and you see that in that one last flashback, she goes up to Joel, and they're talking about how the last time that we saw a flashback between them, Ellie told Joel never to talk to her again because she found out the truth about the Fireflies and about how there was going to be a cure, but it would have killed her, and Ellie was 100% okay with that, but Joel saved her, and now he basically doomed the plant, and Ellie's life is all for nothing. Like, none of this matters anymore, so she's mad at Joel for that. But the one last flashback that you get, it was literally like the night before all this began. The night before all this began, it was her going up to Joel and saying, listen, maybe we actually can work this out. Maybe we actually can connect again. Maybe we're gonna be okay after all. And then, from playing the game, the very next day, Joel dies. So now you can understand Ellie's anger a little bit more because you're understanding that they didn't just take Joel away, they took away the future that Ellie might have had with Joel, the future connection that she might have been able to reform with Joel. They took away the possibility of that future, and I can understand how taking a possibility away is worse than taking away a thing that's already there. I understand that. So yeah, I absolutely get. Well, no, again, I don't say I get what she did in terms of I agree with what she did. No. I get that there was now an extra level of baggage there. And I think that was actually really good. So that was like one last little uptick, but again, oh my god, that whole finale, like that epilogue, that did not need to go on that long. That epilogue, there were so many other terrible things I hate about. It didn't wreck the game for me. It did not wreck the game for me. As I said, we are going to do a review of this game. I'm going to let you know right now, it's a 7 or a 7.5. It's a 7 or a 7.5 for me, but it was an 8 or an 8.5 before we got to that epilogue. Before we got to that epilogue, I was actually like coming all the way back around on this. I was really impressed with this, and that epilogue, again, it's just somebody going, aren't we smart? Look at how much more story we have to tell, and look at all the other amazing things we can do. It's like, no man, go out on top. Go out on top. And they so did not. Oh, I think this is the longest spoiler talk we've ever done. And I really hope that you guys can kind of understand where I'm coming from on this. If not, I hope that it can create some good, respectful discussions in the comments down below. I understand there's gonna be a lot of people who disagree with me. As I said, I know there's a lot of people out there who think that this is an absolute masterpiece and that this is their best game of all time, or at least best game of the year. I'm letting you know right now, it's not even making my top 10. It is not even making my top 10. I will be stunned if this makes my top 10. But I do get there are people out there who feel that way. I quoted that joke from earlier that Jim Sterling said about how if you think this is a masterpiece, I can't wait till you read books or movies. I quoted that just because it's kind of how I feel about like, yeah, man, I've seen all this stuff before, and I've seen all this stuff done way better before. But I know there are other people out there who are going to think that this is the best that can be done, and I would be interested in hearing why you feel that way. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, because I do feel like this is going to hit a lot of people differently. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of people out there who are just viewing this as amazing, groundbreaking, one of the greatest things they've ever witnessed. And they're treating it like there is nothing to critique. And there's something to critique about everything. Even my absolute favorite video game of all time. My 100% I love it, we'll play it over and over and over and over again video game. There's still people out there who are gonna hate that, and you know what? They'll probably have a good legitimate reason to hate that. But that's it, my throat is destroyed, and I should probably go and rest it up because just to come in here and remind everyone, once again, this weekend we are going to be doing a huge, massive charity stream over at twitch.tv/ProfessorThorgi. It's going to go for an entire week straight. So just come on by, check that out. We're going to be raising money for Direct Relief, is a charity that provides medical supplies to doctors all around the world. So come by, hang out, enjoy yourself, donate for a good cause. But again, let me know what you thought about The Last of Us Part 2 in the comments down below, and as soon as our week-long charity stream is over with, I'm going to start working on the official review, so I will talk more about things like, the gameplay in there, or, after a week goes by of me thinking about this, maybe my opinions will change on this a little bit. But thank you guys very much for tuning in. Come back next time. Bye.